Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is December 1st, 2025. This is episode 168. On the board today will be two items. The one that is going to gather a lot of speed is Minnesota's record welfare fraud that has been uncovered. Tim Walz, former vice presidential candidate with Harris, is stuck right in the middle of it. So Minnesota is experiencing a significant increase of welfare fraud, focusing on the pandemic era child nutrition program, but also involving other possible fraud in housing, aid, and autism therapy billing. Federal investigators report the fraud has cost taxpayers billions and may have ties to extremist groups, although the full extent is still being uncovered. So, the scale is huge. Federal prosecutors have called it the largest pandemic relief fraud in the country, with investigations ongoing and many more potential cases yet to be uncovered. Fraud has been committed through various schemes, including falsely billing for autism therapy, claiming fraudulent benefits for children, housing aid, and housing aid fraud. Investigators believe the money stolen has been used for a variety of purposes, including lavish purchases and potential funding of extremist groups. And this is going back into, of course, Somalia, where there is no government. There's a country called Somalia, but it's lawless. It's nothing. There's no real government, being run by extremists. Further complicating matters is Minnesota government workers blame Walz for massive fraud amid allegations against the Somalian communities there. More than 400 current staff members say governor systematically retaliated against whistleblowers when this was brought to the state's attention. The Minnesota Department of Human Service employees account, which says it consists of more than 480 current staff members at the Minnesota DHS, wrote on X that Walz is 100% responsible for the massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud. But no, we got the opposite response. Governor Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports to group claims. In addition to retaliating against whistleblowers, Governor Walz disempowered the office of the legislative auditor, allowing agencies to disregard their audit findings and guidance, which I can't understand that state legislators would allow that, to say we have a policy and our policy now is not to have or follow the policy, because that's basically what they did. disempower the Office of the Legislative Auditor, allowing agency to disregard their audit findings and guidance. That's what I said before. That is saying, we have a policy, we're not going to follow the policy, and we're going to make it a policy of not following the policy. That someone in the state legislation or anyone elected to go, whoa, we're not going to follow an audit trail, or if something is brought up during an audit, we're not going to investigate it. Well, that's apparently what is taking place. And again, Democrats, mostly in these democratic, socialist, communist strongholds, such as Tim Walz. There's no ifs, ands about it that he's a socialist, Democrat, communist. He even bragged about being a socialist. And you could see what they're doing. And again, I want to know who's behind these people. And then who's behind those people. And we know it's Soros type funding and groups, that their job is to destroy America. They scream about not following laws. And for them, well, we can disregard them. We don't have to follow laws. We don't have to follow procedures. Right? Because that's what they're saying. That's what Tim Walz is saying. And he was going to be possibly the vice president of the United States. We have a problem in this country, folks. We have people that want to toss the Constitution away. You have you have them screaming, Second Amendment, Second Amendment, and then just throwing away. They just throw it away. We can't undo the Second Amendment. We can't undo the First Amendment. We can't undo the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. So we're just going to get rid of it all, and we'll keep the parts that we like, and the parts that we don't like, we'll get rid of. Because we're going to have a true democracy. You think that's going to happen, folks? Do you think someone that is Muslim is going to say, sure, women can go to schools. Sure, they can vote. Sure, they have a right to be heard. Yeah. Go to 90% of the Muslim-run countries and see how that works out. Go over there with your purple hair. Tell them you're gay. Oh, you're gay? You should see the view from the top of the building. It's to die for. The Democrats who say they're Democrats and who follow these socialists are the most ignorant voters in America. So, how do you think Democrats are handling this? Democrats have condemned the accusations targeting Somalis in Minnesota, even though these crimes were committed primarily by Somalians brought to America. Of course, Representative Omar, in response to Trump's threat of ending TPC benefits immediately for Somalians, or for Somalias, said on November 24th, even little kids in the 8th grade know that it's not an authority that the president has and can yield. The federal government is required by statute to publish a notice in the Federal Register 60 days before ending TPC protection. I consider that notice. Minnesota State Attorney General Keith Ellison also suggested in a post on X that he may seek legal recourse if Trump immediately removes the TPC protections. Trump's announcement of termination of Somalia TPS holders in Minnesota is legally problematic. While a president does have a lot of authority to designate and revoke TPS, he cannot legally yield that power to discriminate against an ethnic group or target a state, like Minnesota. This ain't over, Ellison stated. Well, number one, you're not targeting them. These are the people that are abusing the gift of America. Those people will be found, denaturalized if necessary, and sent back to their headhunting country, and they could practice that there. Okay? Amy Klobuchar, poet's Democrat, Minnesota, on CNN Sunday disputed that Somalians in particular are the problem in the state. Okay. Every state has problems with crime. But what the president has done here is taken a horrific crime that occurred in Washington, D.C., where one beloved Guard member is struggling for his life. Another was shot and killed. He took that case, and then he went 2,400 miles away to Somalia and somehow indicted an entire group of people. Well, he didn't go to Somalia. He went to Minnesota. And he said, these are the people that are abusing it. As a group, they're abusing it. And if we find others in it, they'll be arrested and charged. And if they're not citizens, and the protection has been lifted from them, because how many times have they tried to lift, or how many times has TPS been administered and given for these people? I think it's 27 times that it's been extended. Now, is Somalia a feces-covered country? Yes. Yes. If these people were sending money to Somalian rebels, out they go and they go back. Which obviously you're not afraid of the rebels, and the rebels are going to protect you, and that's it. You have a good time. You're not on our dime anymore. Klobuchar also state that he, being Trump, tries to stoke division and make people hate each other. I'm guessing the idea of calling out people who are doing things is somehow getting people to hate other people. Well, Amy, it's called transparency. And it's calling people what they are. And I agree, it might not be right to color with such a big, broad stroke with paintbrushes. But you can do it. And the fact is that this is being done mostly in, I'm I'm not certain you'll find a white farmer sending aid to Somalian rebels. Just going to say that I'm going to go out on a limb here and go, you're not going to find any of that. You'll find people that are in this thing going, hey, you're getting $1 million. I want 100,000 of that, and you want to do whatever you want with that 900,000, but I get a piece of that. Sure. There might be American citizens in there, and they will be caught, and they will be held accountable. Minnesota's Governor Walz, whose leadership is now being tested as his Republican opponent in 2026 elections, Kristen Robbins, has made the fight against fraud central to her campaign and told NBC Sunday, "We're doing everything we can, but to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few is lazy." And again, pointing out the facts is not being lazy. It's being transparent and truthful. We know where the problem is. We know what community is causing the problem. Or they're law-abiding Somalians or people of Somalian that have now become citizens, and are they all bad? No, of course not. Of course not. Just like every white person didn't own a slave. Right? And using that type of logic, which I can agree, but to demonize an entire community on their actions of a few is lazy. Let's talk about reparations. Why should I have to pay reparations for something that only a few did hundreds of years ago? Hundreds of years ago. If you're going to use that, you got to use that mine too. On X, Walz appeared to accuse Trump, who just granted clemency to a private equity executive who had been sentenced to 7 years in prison for his role in a $1.6 million fraud, which is true. Tim Walz is absolutely true in that statement. He says that Trump is a hypocrite. Just to be clear, there'll be no pardons for fraudsters in Minnesota. Number one, if it's a federal case, Tim, you don't have a say in it. Okay? Now, state charges, yeah, Trump has no say in that. You do. How many people did you pardon? Let's take a look at that, Tim. I meant to do that before, and I got diverted. Let's see. How many pardons did Tim Walz give? So, he's given over 200 pardons since 2019. And of course, they're saying, and this is AI, Google, which I hate. Um, However, the exact total number of individuals pardoned where he specifically voted yes across all board members is not a single, easily searchable number, as pardons are granted by 3 members, and they have changed. Some of those members have changed tenure, meaning that in that 2019 might have been 6 people there, not him. So, okay. So his office has pardoned people. Well, I won't. Like I said, it's hard. But 200 since he's been in office. All right. So, Tim, people in glass houses. I'm pretty certain murderers have been let go in your state, too. All right, stealing $1.6 million, $1.6 billion. He hurt a lot of people. Regardless, he hurt a lot of people. Didn't murder him in say, but I wonder how many people there who might have been taken by that fraud. Lives ended earlier than they should be from just worry and upset and even suicides. I would convict that person on murder. So, Tim, it's nice, but you are up to your neck in fraud and the base of people that you have supported and gone out of your way to protect. And when we find out that you protected any of these people, you're done for. Politically, you're done for. And if that fraud was known or being investigated under the Biden administration, and yet you were picked to be vice president, I think the DNC and those Democrats, all the way up the chain of command, and the FBI, the Department of Justice, and anyone else who had their fingerprints on this stuff, should be looked at. My question would be, of the DHS in Minnesota who said we complained that this wasn't being looked into and wasn't being done, why wasn't that ever brought up during the election? Why did they bring that up now? Wouldn't you say, hey, this guy Walz, oh yeah, he's great, look at him. There's fraud going on, he's not doing anything about it. Now, if it was brought to the media attention, and the media attention that they went to, maybe they went to CNN, maybe they went somewhere else, and it got squashed, and they go, yeah, we're not going to do this, and we're going to tell him who's doing this. So if you go running off to someone else, we're going to point the finger right at you. Now, if that happened, I'd like to know that too. All right, now we're going to go back to a big Joe Biden. A German court may have unraveled one of Biden's era's biggest lies. It's hard to say what is the top number one lie of Biden. I would say that it was his health. He wasn't truthful. Even though you might be able to say he had no idea. He thought he was doing everything great. But his people around him should have said, yeah, no, you're not, and this is how America's seeing you. You know, no one wants to tell the king they have no clothes on. So I can understand some of the people around him, but some of the people that scream, country over party. Remember, we heard that screaming all through the election. Country over party. Where were they? All right. This week, a German court issued an arrest warrant for Ukrainian, I won't even bother with his name, Serhiy Kontsov, which may finally confirm what has been long suspected, that the Ukraine was responsible for the 2022 sabotage of the Nord Stream pipeline in waters near Denmark and Sweden. The Biden administration may have been given prior warning. It was allegedly told years ago by a Ukrainian whistleblower that a 6-person team of Ukrainian special forces was planning to rent a boat, dive to the seafloor, and blow up the Nord Stream project. The operation was reported led by a commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Now, I don't know if they sent divers down that far. I don't know if divers could go down that far. Don't know. But for the Germans' court to go as far as they are going, they must have some pretty good information. Or at least information that should be looked at and go, all right, this is what you're saying. Let's see where this goes. The Biden administration and many in the media fueled speculation that Russia had destroyed its own pipeline. For what reason? They could have just turned it off. Other than the fact that they would have been turning it off and, say, hey, we're going to screw you all now. And if they didn't want that to be, and it's just easier for them to blow up the pipeline, but there was easier ways to do it. They didn't have to do that. So the logic that everyone was saying was like, I'm going to cut off my nose to spite my face? I don't know. I might cut your nose off, but I'm not going to cut my own nose off. It was another convenient claim of a Russian false flag operation that allowed the Biden administration to ignore the possibility that Ukraine had not only engaged in this environmental crimes, but had also knowingly lied to its allies. For years, some have questioned the official account from the Biden administration about the available evidence of those responsible. Now, as I said before, governments have secrets, and they need to have secrets. They just can't say, yeah, we have that information, here it is, because it will lead to the people that we use for assets to get information, even about our allies. The suggestion of a Russian attack on a Russian pipeline never seemed logical. However, the administration had given the Ukrainian government billions in support for Ukraine. Funding that some people say now goes as high as $180 billion during the Biden administration. Having Ukraine sabotage pipelines to our allies would hardly be appropriate when many were questioning the cost to the U.S. citizens, and the whole action opportune to give money to them, and they just cut off vital necessities to our allies. Funny, all the war that we allowed trading to continue, and they sold wheat, and they bought that, and they're fighting. It was just way, everything was just way too convenient. Russia could have stomped out the Ukraine. Could have stomped them out. And they didn't, because they fell into the same problem we had with Vietnam. If we went in there and plastered them, China and Russia would have to intervene. They'd have to go, we're not going to let our ally go down over here. It's just not going to happen. We have too much at risk in our bold plan. And Russia knew that if they would attack the Ukraine heavily, as much as they did, and not secure the Ukraine within 4 to 6 weeks, that the plan would have been a disaster, which has been a disaster, because what their fear was more countries in Europe going into NATO, and that's exactly what happened. The sum of all fears. It was, and what they were preaching against was a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it was from their own actions. And some of those countries never wanted to join NATO. They just didn't want to get that involved in us. They were, we'll handle our own. And they did a good job of it. And now, they jumped in. They said, well, if Russia can do that over there, they could certainly do it over here. And now we have NATO protection. Again, the Ukraine was all on 100% Biden and Putin, of course. But Biden gave Putin an open ultimatum. We'll do this, and you can't do that, and if you do that, and all that needed to be done is back channel saying, what are you worried about? They're never coming into NATO. Don't worry about that. You want the Crimea? We can work that out with you. That's something that can be worked out. The Crimean Peninsula and all that, it was very vital to Russia militarily. They needed that. And Zelensky said, well, you're not getting that for nothing. And the Ukraine is one of the most dishonest nations in the world. And I'm sure Putin went back and he goes, hey, some information can hit the doorsteps of people that we have about your son, about everything else, about your dealings. Remember, we're friends with China still. Made a lot of deals over there, right? You and your boy? Well, maybe some stuff should be leaked out. I don't know how it could happen, but... And Biden called us bluff. And he goes, you're not going to attack them because if you attack them, we're going to do this. And Biden goes, yeah, you want to do that? Sure. And Biden attacked. Putin attacked. Now, Putin, to his dismay, was not told the truth by his own military, who said, we could have this done. Give us 20 divisions, give us this, give us that, stack it up. And we saw it being stacked up. I mean, our intel saw what was going on. It was a prelude to an invasion. And in the meantime, then we started funneling stuff to Ukraine and told them, hey, you will not be able to stop them. And you're going to end up this much of your territory, but they're going to get in this far. And once they cross that, once they get that far, then we can do what we always did. Go after the supply lines. Slow them down. And that's what happened. We gave them the capability to go after the supply line. Make it so that you just can't keep supplying them, and eventually it stalls. And now you beef up your line, and yeah, you might have lost 100 or 200 miles, but you stalled them. Now they're going to have to think twice about this. Then the winter comes, and then all of a sudden you start getting more and more aid, because Russia is getting. They're trying harder and harder, and our weaponry is just superior. And all it meant was a lot of people were killed. And it could have been prevented, or at least, in my opinion, it could have been prevented. And would never have happened if Donald Trump had been president. Would never have happened. Gaza would never have happened if Trump was president. That would never have happened. The Biden administration will go down in history as the worst. Worse than Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was naive. He was naive. Biden's administration was just corrupt. From the top down, corrupt. Pelosi, corrupt. Waters, corrupt. Schiff, corrupt. Everyone sitting there in power was corrupt. And America paid the price. I think what's happening in Minnesota is going to be a wake-up call for a lot of these Democrats to go, we're looking. Because you've gotten so bold-faced about it that you think that whatever you did is good. No matter if it was bad, it was good. You guys are in for a rude awakening. Trump's been in office, 11 months? And you see the Democrats that were all against him just parting ways, getting out of the way, or being arrested, or being indicted. Not with false dossiers and false FBI agents going, we'll get him. He has to go. No. We're using paperwork that they filled out. that they know was false. Trump's case in New York had to do with, he said this was worth $1 million, and the government said no. And the bankers all said, well, we were fine with that. And they go, nope, it didn't follow the proper channels, didn't do this, we're going to find him business fraud practice. And not one bank made a complaint against him. Not one loan was not paid as contracted. Not one piece of paper filled out incorrectly. And the property that was in question was worth 3 times what the estimate was at the time of the case. But the case against Trump was 100% political. The reason going after Schiff, James, and others is political. But the crime is real. And I agree with when people go, if Trump wasn't there, none of this would have happened. I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I agree with that statement. Was there a crime? Yeah. Yeah, sure. If Trump wasn't here, they would have gotten away with it. How about that? No one would have said anything. You're absolutely correct. No one would have said anything. But was there a crime? Yeah. So, can we both be correct? You say the sun comes up in the morning, I say it goes down in the evening. Can we both be correct? Sure we can. Comey, they committed a crime. Would it have mattered if Trump was not elected? No one would have said a thing. No one would have known, except in Comey's case, but no one would have known. So you could say this is because of Trump. Yep. Yep. Absolutely correct. But was there a crime involved? All right. 45 minutes. I stretched this out as long as I could. Today is Monday. And you know what happens on Mondays? Socrates Station. In Socrates, South Carolina. We'll watch some Monday Night Football. Have a couple of drinks. Remember, if I have more than one drink, it's a cab ride home over the course of 3 or 4 hours. Please give to a charity if you can. If you're uncomfortable with that, I can understand. Look to give to food banks. Mostly this time of year, all time of year is important to give to a food bank or to a charity, but mostly this time of year. And then check with those people. Do they need clothes? Do they need paper goods? Do they need towels? Do they need soaps? Do they need feminine products? Do they need these things? Diapers? And, of course, a monetary donation to these groups goes a long, long way, because they could take that money and then focus exactly what they need at that point in time. They'll always accept, non-expired food, non-open food, of course. They'll always accept that. They can give that out immediately, but a cash donation or monetary donation goes a long way to help them in their immediate ability to help people. And it goes without a reason why. I always think of the people with children. The children had nothing to do with what their parents failed to do or didn't do or did do, or bad planning or just bad luck. The children had nothing to do with that. And they're going to suffer in cold or hunger or no clothes to wear and stuff. No, let's not do that. Let's be bigger than that. All right, everyone, be safe, be well, be good. I'm going to end this now. It's approximately 46 minutes and 30 seconds. So with that, I'm just going to fade to black.